My name's Daniel Avramilakis, and I just got back from Peru. Why did I go? It was a school trip with the science department to help with surveys in the Amazon River, particularly in the Samaria region. It was 16 days, very long, but very enjoyable. I don't think I really want to be home right now. I still want to be there. It's the kind of mindset that it was given to me through this trip. I miss it. But 45 gigabytes later of film from the trip, I decided to make a video on it. And here's that. Enjoy.
The trip began at our high school with 17 students, 2 teachers, and a bus driver who would take us to Pearson Airport in Toronto, Ontario, where our flight would leave later that day. Our first flight was from Toronto to JFK, but to our dismay, it was delayed. It was only an hour-long wait time, but it was an hour added on to the already long wait we would have before we got onto the flight. Not to help the situation, we were antsy and tired from the bus ride to the airport already, and extremely excited for the trip ahead.
Orange flavor mother.
After a short flight from Pearson to JFK, we were landed, but not for long. Because of our delay in Toronto, we were going to be shoved back into the air immediately. But not before we met the next group on our journey. On specifics that weren't really explained well to me, we were meeting up with the second school from Oakville, a private school, that would be going on the same trip as us. This group would be with us for the rest of the trip, so slowly and surely we became one group. But back to our flight. Our next flight would be from JFK to Lima, Peru. A very long flight, but it had to be done. When we landed in Lima, we were hit with the heat and the humidity that we Canadians are just not used to. As well, we were very engrossed in the exchange of our dollars for the soles, which is the currency used there. We weren't done flying yet. We still had one more flight, from Lima to Iquitos, Peru. Iquitos is this pretty decent sized city/town in the middle of the Amazon, basically. The main transportation / access to Iquitos is by plane because it is surrounded by rivers of the Amazon. But it was our last flight on the journey there, and it was underway. And this is kind of where the trip made a turn for me because I think I got a little bit of travel sickness on this flight. By that I mean my stomach wasn't in it. I don't know if it was from the food from one of the flights or from the food at the Lima airport. My stomach just wasn't feeling it, but it quickly subsided after a few hours. Due to a large amount of people telling me that my camera would not climatize and would break if I brought it out into the hot, humid Peru weather, I did not bring it out until we got onto our ship in Nauta. But basically before that happened, we landed in Iquitos and bus from the airport to Nauta, where our ship was docked. When we got onto the ship, and I call it a ship because the thing was huge, much larger than anticipated. We were sectioned into groups for the rooms that we would be staying in. We were then let loose to explore this massive vessel that we would be staying on for the next 2 weeks. All the while, the boat would be traveling towards first location in the Samaria Reserve. At this point in the journey, we had some new members join the group. We had the Operation Wallacea staff who were overseeing the mission. We had the guides and the staff of the boat who did that work, as well as the scientists who were experts in their field and helped us along the expedition. The boat journey itself would take about a day and a bit to actually get to our first location. To fill time, we basically just relaxed and chilled out and got used to our surroundings and the people that we were sharing them with. We also got a few lectures here and there from the owner of the boat and the lead scientist about how the next few weeks would proceed. On the night before we arrived at the first location, the Bakaya Samiria Reserve, the boat was split into groups that would share daily tasks. Each group would be given 2 tasks daily, one in the morning and one in the evening or the afternoon. In my case, my group's first task was mist netting. Mist netting involved us waking up at an earlier hour than other tasks besides macaws and having a little trek into the forest. On this particular trek, and especially because we had a lecture the previous day about the felines in this forest, the sound that the howler monkey made kinda spooked us. And here's why. But after a quick explanation of what was making those noises, we soon arrived at our location and began the mist netting. When we reached the location, we set up a bunch of nets across a bunch of clearings in the forest. We then went back and rested for a few minutes and let hopefully some birds to fly into these nets. We go back, take the birds out, and put them in a bag and take them back to our this camp spot we had made. After returning to the little camp that we made, we would take the bird out in a safe manner. We'd get our measuring instruments and we would measure, record, and tag the bird before releasing it. Other tasks that I don't have any film for include caimaning and bat watching. This involves us going out at night, down the river, with flashlights, either spotting bats, which some groups could see up to 80 on one trek, or looking for caimans, which are little crocodile-like reptilians that are located close to the shores. And on most nights, people didn't see many, but our group was lucky enough to catch 2 in one night. Tasks that I actually have film for include macaws, which involved us going down the river at a really early hour and spotting macaws that would fly over top of us. You could tell between macaws by the calls that each different kind would make. Another task was fishing. This involved us going down the river to a new location each time usually and setting on the side of it. We were given a stick with a string and a little hook on the end, usually with the chicken from last night's meal. We were using this to grab any piranha or fish that we could find. Another thing that was done on this would be someone would go out in a canoe into the flood forest and set up nets where most of the fish would be found. The main catch is usually piranhas, but if you're lucky you would find a fish you had never seen before or half-eaten fish that was stuck in the net and the piranhas made prey of it. After all the fish were gathered, they were weighed, observed, and recorded before they were later returned back to the habitat of which they came. Definitely the most relaxing task of the bunch was the dolphins. Basically you just sat and relaxed in the sun on the boat as you went down the river, and if by chance you saw dolphins, it was great. On the one occasion though, our driver seemed to want to go through this little grassy spot and we might have got stuck. But we got out eventually. It was an experience. You might be wondering, dolphins in the Amazon River, that's kind of weird. But yes, there are dolphins in the Amazon River. There was actually 2 species of dolphins in this river. There was the gray and the pink river dolphin. The pink river dolphin was different than the gray because it could turn its head horizontally and switch directions while the gray cannot. This made this dolphin stand out to me and made it my favorite. They were both cool though because they both over time adapted to live in these non-salty water environments, which was amazing. And finally, to everyone's probably most favorite task out of the bunch, the transect. It was basically a trek into the forest, taking a break, and having that long trek back. Your whole job was to basically spot any wildlife and record it. It was cool because everyone had their own special sighting and experience with a monkey that they had seen along the trek. Personally, mine was I came across a baby howler monkey that had fallen out of a tree because its parents had a little skit. And sadly, this monkey would probably not make it past the night. But that's the circle of life, and that was my little cool story. But personally, my favoriteest moment on these treks was seeing the long highways of leafcutter ants that were everywhere across the forest floor, and on logs, trees, and it was just amazing seeing them do their business. It was great. A week into our trip, we had gone pretty lucky. Prior to the trip, we were told that it was supposed to rain the whole trip, but for one whole week, it barely rained at all. But at the 1 week mark, it just seemed to start and never really stop. But this is totally fine, because like I said, it was expected. It wasn't like we weren't used to staying inside anyways. It was very hot there, and if we weren't outside playing soccer, tanning, or reading outside, we were inside trying to conserve as much air conditioning as we could. The power was only on for 6 hours a day in 3 2-hour slots, and when the power was on, we were inside enjoying the air conditioning because it was hot, and escaping it was quite nice. Common things to do in the boat included playing games of sheethead and euchre, catching up on homework, and just relaxing. And if you weren't doing any of those things, it was either inputting data into the computer or listening through lectures. If you were lucky and stayed up late, you could be into a random dance party. One of my favorite things included, for probably most people's favorite thing actually, was taking a shower, because after a long, hot, humid day in the heats in Peru, it was very nice to just pretend it was cold again.
Rabbit, Jack, hit me with the rack. Yeah.
Two things also happened a week into the trip. First, we moved downriver closer to where we had started our journey, and to a place where it didn't actually have a soccer field, which was kind of a disappointment to some of us, as well as a second group joined onto us. It was two private schools from Vancouver who didn't really mesh as well as we meshed with the Oakville group, but it worked out eventually. On the day before we set off to go back to Nauta, we had a half day of tasks, and then we set off towards one of the little villages close by. When we got there, we ventured around the village and we got to meet the people. We got to see what they did, see where they lived, see what they did and what they made. We had chances to buy souvenirs. We also brought souvenirs of our own to give out to the children. For the first half of the day at least, it was pouring rain, but as the day progressed on, it started to clear a little bit and got sunny, and it allowed us to make our way around the village, and especially when we were leaving, it allowed the sunset to come through. It was like a goodbye gift, as it were. I don't know, but our boat began to just sing tunes and happiness and such. Then came the final day on the river, where the first two groups who arrived packed up and said goodbye to everyone. The last two groups who came would stay a week later and go to the other place where we had gone for the first week. Everyone said goodbye. It was a heartfelt moment, and we set off down the river for 9 hours back to Nauta. When we got to Nauta, we would set off back to Iquitos, where we would stay a night in a hotel and go and shop at the vendors and look around the little city there before we got onto our plane and headed back home. This is a very sad moment because no one wanted to leave. Everyone was so used to this lifestyle we were living so far and how comfortable it was. No one wanted to leave. It was a great experience. And I feel like I can say this for most of the group, because if it was not the greatest, it was one of the greatest experiences of our lives. I definitely recommend, if you have the chance to go on a trip like this, that you would go on it. It is a great experience, and it might be suited more for a science student, but I was not a science student, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I wish I was still there. Now, just a little bit more information on this trip. This trip was provided to us by Operation Wallacea, or OpWall for short. They do conservation trips all across the world to places like Guyana, Honduras, Madagascar, Mexico, Cuba, and in our case, Peru. I'll probably have the information for them on the screen, but also I'd just like to say that all the information I said about the trip, about the tasks and stuff, they're more in-depth. I just gave a brief little run-through of them so I could get through the video easier. If you like what you saw and you want to see some more, be sure to check out my Instagram at Daniel_Mavro, because I've uploaded hundreds of photos from Peru, and they're there, just waiting. We filmed some skits on the transects. Like I said, we waited for a bit, and we might have filmed some skits, so here are those.
Following is a short documentary film called Lost in the Amazon, starring me apparently. Cut.
Be very, very quiet. You might be able to hear the very elusive woolly monkey. They like to nest in the upper canopy of the forest to avoid predation from other larger predators. Quiet, maybe we can have a glimpse.
Right, we need to mark.
Are you recording already?
Este,
S in arbor.
es un árbol.
Estoy sudando.
Sí, mucho calor. Hoy también. No, hoy también. River Darky.
Yo también.
Sancudo.
You Tambino.
Tengo hambre.
¿Quieres?
Sí, gracias.
Nada.
Tengo sed.
¿Quiere agua?
Sí. Gracias. What up my nose?
Uno pequeño, dos pequeños, tres pequeños monos, cuatro pequeños, cinco pequeños, seis pequeños monos, siete pequeños, 8 pequeños, 9 pequeños monos, todos monos en el bosque. Mano,